Hi, I'm Kat, and today I'm showing you how to make this miniature dragon egg chefs and eggs from Game of Thrones. I recently just started watching, actually I binge watched all 6 seasons at one time, and I gotta say I'm a bit of a fan now, where I did not know before what it was all about. So, hope you enjoyed the tutorial. So for the eggs, I use 3 shades. I use the beige, a muted green, and a muted red. And to mute these colors, I just added in a little beige to both the red and the green. Then I shaped them into an egg shape and stuck them on top of one of my smallest ball tools or toothpick and pre-baked. Once out of the oven, you can add an additional layer of clay onto it and push it towards the top and the bottom, making sure that you still maintain your egg shape. I'm sorry my hands are going off camera here. Then use a small toothbrush to texture the top and the bottom. Then I used an X-Acto knife to create the scales. Turn it at a slight angle and imprint into the egg. You don't start to see it taking shape until you do the next layers. Now you can alternate or you can place the zigzags one underneath the other. Even though they're actually one underneath the other in the movie, I preferred them zigzag, like alternated like this. So that's what I stuck with. And then once you pull it off your toothpick and pre-bake it again, you can add an additional little bit of clay to cover up the hole at the bottom. Don't forget to texture it to blend it. Here are all 3 eggs baked and ready to go to the next step. Now they're not all one shade, so we have to do a little paint in order to make them a little less homogeneous. So for the green one, I used a dark green, a light sage green, and a yellow. For the beige one, I used a dark brown, a light beige, and a yellowish beige. And then for the reddish brown one, red, brown, and then beige. And then you're going to use the lightest shade along the bottom and just stipple on the paint so that you're just adding a little color, a little shade variety. This is the sage green at the bottom, followed by a little yellow. And then I used a darker green just to accent underneath the scales. Then I used scrap clay to create a large block, and then 3 more of those. So I have 4 blocks total, and then I glued them together with liquid clay. That way you have the beginning of a chest and the lid. Press the side of the chest into another piece of clay, and you can cut out that shape to be the side, and glue that in place with liquid clay, and then do the same thing to make a lid. Pre-bake all of those, and then you can sand them. I'm using an 80 grit sandpaper, I think it's 80 grit, to give that a nice rough edge. And then basically when I sand this out fully, it's going to give it a wood texture. And then I brushed over this with brown paint. If you have any areas where the paint isn't quite going on, that lets you know immediately that you haven't sanded it enough. So repeat the sanding and then paint again. And then finally, it's because the chest in the movie is not clean and new, I dusted over it with some khaki colored paint that's been watered down. And that gave it a slightly aged and dusty look. Once baked and painted, I actually lined mine with a piece of satin ribbon at the top and painted the entire chest black. You don't have to do this because really it didn't make a difference when it was all said and done. I would just paint the chest black and call it a day. And then I used some aluminum foil to add as a filler in the bottom, and a little scrap clay, and then some sand colored clay on top of it. And then I used the back of the same toothbrush that I'm doing my texture with and press in a little oval shape. This will make sure it fits the eggs. Of course, you want to make sure your eggs fit before you bake this clay, otherwise it's a bit of a mess, and make sure they fit even with the lid on top. Then texture over it again with your toothbrush to give it the appearance of sand, and you can add paint if you'd like or not. And for the embellishments on the chest, I went online and I found as many stills as I possibly could of the movie where they show the chest, and that way I can get some of the detail in place. Of course, I did omit quite a bit of it just for scale or time or patience or whatever else, but I just drew whatever. I traced the sides of my chest, and then I drew as much as I could all of the details on top. Only draw it once, because this is the magic of photocopying. You can take it and copy it and have several other copies to go and make your embellishments with. So I began to cut out pieces. And in most cases, the chest is quite symmetrical, so I only needed like 4 of each thing. But there were some occasions where I needed, a little bit more. And then once you have all of these cut out, you can add the separate sheets of paper to add details on top of the embellishments. So here I cut out the diamonds separately and put them on top of the separate strip of paper. And then I'm using Mod Podge Dimensional Magic in order to add the little bolts at the top. You can also use liquid clay if you'd like. And then I'm using several shades of metallic paint to give it to give the metal the effect. I'm using both an antique gold and a copper. And I'm also using an Inca gold and metallic gunmetal gray. I'm not going to show you me applying the metallic gunmetal gray. That is at the end, and it goes all over the entire chest. But I painted the bottom tone in the antique gold color, and then I stippled on the bronze and the Inca gold. And then I glued these to the chest. I used pieces of ribbon to make the hinge, and then once everything was dry, I went over the entire chest, especially the metal parts, with the gunmetal gray, and that gave it a nice aged and toned down look. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.